This is not the first take, but recently I wrote this essay about qualia, and like an audiobook, I am going to read it right after telling you that you can find it here and read it yourself if you want. This is an essay about qualia. Qualia is a made-up name for a unit of experience, like an atom of physical stuff. It's like an atom in that it tries to refer to a smallest unit of something, but the stuff qualia refers to is, shall we say, not super clear whether it is physical. Experience for me, and it is a subjective thing, so talking about it in first person is the one and only way from which I can say anything about it, and nobody else can say anything very concretely, I suspect, about my first-hand experience, just like I can't see or say anything confidently about yours. For me, when I see green, I see something more than life or any connotations or connections that may be had with the color green. I experience those connections, but in addition, and again I can only speak for myself, I see greenness, that is, try though I might, completely indescribable in words. One thing that's very peculiar about qualia is that some few people that I've met, one, claim to not know what I'm talking about with this qualia, and two, claim to understand what I'm talking about, but claim to not have qualia. More particularly, I know at least two people who have claimed to not have consciousness. But to be fair, I'm not sure whether they claim to know what I'm talking about with this qualia, and if they do, whether they claim to have qualia. Now, a quick aside about consciousness. Consciousness is super badly defined, I think. There's a lot of different takes I've heard of for what people think of with consciousness, which is why this essay is about qualia and not consciousness. One definition in particular about consciousness that I don't think is the same as qualia is self-awareness. In a certain sense, a computer program seems self-aware to me, in that it can read its own computer code and do things with it, so it's sort of aware of itself. But this is not so about qualia, it seems. Qualia seems to be, perhaps, the only thing I've witnessed which is not, and now I'm going to list a few things which I think of as having a certain sameness: mathematical, physical, objective, something which can be simulated on a Turing machine. I'm a computer scientist. I look at the world, and every single thing I see can be boiled down to a computer program, except one thing, and that thing is qualia. What the heck is it? That's maybe the thesis of this essay. Qualia is the heck something, and we don't know, or care it seems, what it is. And we would be wise to care about it, I think, because, it's really the only, or like a whole lot, the thing people care about. We as humans really would like it to be known that it's not okay to give us pain, because it's not like just expressions and yells of discomfort. There's actually, in fact, a perhaps strange awareness of this pain that's going on. And I know you don't see it, as I don't see your awareness, but please respect mine. I'm not a robot. Anyway, yeah, a unit of experience, like a unit of greenness. About greenness for a second. I think a lot of people don't realize how strange qualia is compared to other things, because they think about greenness as follows. Green is a frequency of light, 528 terahertz, same as what chlorophyll reflects, says the internet. And other colors have higher or lower frequencies, similar to the pitch of sound. But the thing is, it's not at all similar to sound. Apart from the glaringly obvious to every single person when they hear a pitch and see green, those are like completely different experiences. But let's dive a little deeper. Our brains don't really capture color in the same way as sound. Eyes have 3 types of sensors for color, whereas the ear can have over 15,000 hair cells which trigger at different pitches on the cochlea. So, while it may make sense to say that different pitches are the same as each other, only differing by a number, of how up or down to go, colors don't seem to differ by a number. There's no sense in which red is higher or lower than green. It's just completely different. And blue, completely different from red or green. And to carry on talking about greenness for one more second, here's a little thought experiment that I like. I implant into your eye a new cone cell type that responds to a new frequency of light that isn't picked up by the red, green, or blue cones. Of course, it will take overnight before you'll actually be able to see this new color. So, to prepare you for the experience, I will try to explain to you in an elaborate set of diagrams and knowledgeable speakers on the topic, and nation-state funding going all out to provide you the best explanation possible on this earth. Do you think the explanation could prepare you for what the color would look like when you saw it tomorrow? I don't. And I find that interesting because everything else does seem to be explainable in this way. Is this religion or woo? Well, I would say yes and no. Here's the yes part. Many religions posit in their metaphysics the existence of stuff that is not physical, like spirits, and an afterlife realm where people go even though we don't seem to see them here in the physical universe. Likewise, qualia seems to me not physical. Of course, a lot of people I've met and talked to about qualia believe that it is physical. They believe that it is essentially an elaborate emergent phenomena that arises from the vast complexity of the brain. They believe qualia is maybe interesting, but not essentially fundamental in the way a subatomic particle is fundamental. I personally believe that it is, in fact, fundamental, that it is clearly correlated with brain activity, but that there is no bridge, no link, nothing we could learn about the brain or neurons that would make it clear how qualia was produced, in the same way we can understand, via vast eons of evolution, how the brain itself came about from subatomic particles. This brings us to the no part about whether this is religion or woo. Both religions and woo have the following property. They're pretty sparing and sometimes outright opposed to evidence. Sometimes they advocate faith. However, qualia has no end of evidence. Some people would say, no, it doesn't have evidence. It's not objective. There's no experiment you could run to falsify the existence of qualia. Therefore, it's not scientific. I would say I mostly agree. I can't think of an objective experiment to run. However, this isn't like asking people to believe in a spirit world that they can't see. Qualia is like the one thing that I can see every moment of my life. I don't know if you see it too, but if you do, well, there's your experiment. You looked, and there it was. So qualia sits in this strange place. Religious people seem to care as little about it when I talk to them as anyone else. And scientific people are often afraid to acknowledge it because it suggests a unique addition to the tiny pantheon of fundamental things currently consisting of general relativity and the standard model. And I think qualia belongs next to those, and should be studied with the same vigor and respect. Epilogue. Is qualia free will, or the conscious observer collapsing the wave function? No. Qualia refers to experience. Maybe you have an experience of free will. If so, that's great, but the experience is not the thing, just as the experience of greenness is not a green photon. Free will may exist, and if so, that's interesting, but it is not qualia, and for me it does nothing to explain qualia. What about the conscious observer collapsing the wave function? No. Qualia may in fact be as related to quantum wave function collapse as it is to neurons in the brain, which it definitely seems somehow related to. But at best, I feel like this only sheds light on where qualia happens, but it's still a complete mystery to me how or why my experience of greenness would pop out of that.